How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Friday edition of KO Podcast Home. Got two movies coming out this weekend, Sicario and Uncle Drew. I'm willing to bet that Jurassic Park 5 comes in first place again, and then I'm going to say Sicario and then Uncle Drew, but I never saw Sicario, so I can't say whether or not it was a great movie. I do know that it's well respected, and the person who directed the first one is not directing the second one, so I don't know how much of a drop-off is going to be in the second one. If there's going to be a drop-off, maybe they'll be good about what made the first one great. So Uncle Drew, on the other hand, looks like it's a decent comedy. I mean, we're going to find out how popular Kyrie Irving is with people. Lil Rel's in it, and Tiffany Haddish is in it, and Nick Kroll's in it, but Nick Kroll, I could take or leave. He has really good parts. He was really good in The League, but in terms of, like, there's certain new comics out there and new comedic actors out there that are really good at what they do, but they don't make everything funny. Like, they're being comedic and they're being goofy, but they're not making me laugh. And, like, while they can make other people laugh, and that's a good thing for them, it's other people laughing does nothing for me, so if I'm not laughing. And Nick Kroll is in that camp with a couple other guys. So I'm gonna talk to you guys today about Megalo Box. Megalo Box is streaming on Crunchyroll, and the final episode aired this week, yesterday, and I'm going to do a few minutes without spoilers, and then I'm going to go into spoilers. So at around the 5-minute mark, like, skip to there if you want spoilers, but like, until then, no spoilers. So the series, first of all, let me talk about the art in this and the music. The art is meant to look like old school anime, and I'm talking scratchy paper, like downscaled looking imagery anime, and it adds a grit to it. Like, some anime that try to look old don't really pull it off. Like, they'll put like some lighting effects or whatever, and they'll get 90% of the way, and it never hits the mark. Be it like the character designs and all that, or like just like the lack of of texture, like non-static texture. And what the art direction did in this one was, we're going to give you wastelands, we're going to give you cityscapes, and they're going to be beautiful. They're going to give you the grit, they're going to give you the broken downness, they're going to give you the dark tones, they're going to give you all the things that you missed. But we're going to throw in some 3D animation, we're going to throw in some nice stuff, we're going to throw in the stuff that would be just too much of a pain in the ass to do by hand, and then we're gonna work with that. And the art style was trying to be gritty, and the art subject was gritty. And like, even when things were being sleek and new, like, there was like less than glamorous spins on it. Now, the other part about Megalo Box, why you should all check it out, is the music. The music in this one is hip-hop. It's very reminiscent of Cowboy Bebop, and it's like it puts you in the situations that much better. Holy shit, that was quick. So, alright, here's the spoilers. The show is about a guy who is an underdog. His literal name is Junk Dog, and he is a boxer that uses exosuits to fight in exosuit boxing matches, and they call Megalo Boxing. Now, in theory, these things will only help you rise to the occasion. I'm sure that someone did some math and all that and talked to an engineer and basically figured out that the demonstration I saw of the real life version, the one that Junk Dog wears, is pretty close to what the current models look like, and it only helps you pick up things that way more than you can pick up. One guy was picking up pipes that weighed several hundred pounds, and it just helped him pick up the pipes. It didn't help him maximize his strength or anything like that. But it's a reactionary example, so you can only hit as hard as you can possibly punch. And Junk Dog goes on a character arc of finding out who what he wants to do in life, because in the beginning he's just wandering around aimlessly, and then he finds Yuri. Yuri is the champ, and while Junk Dog is riding out one night, he gets into a near accident with the president of Yuri's company that runs the Megalo Boxing League. And they meet, and after exchanging words, Yuri decides that he's going to go into the ring and teach Junk Dog a lesson, and Yuri finds out that Junk Dog could be the genuine article, because he does that cocky, one arm behind my back shit, and then Junk Dog almost knocks him out. Almost. So, using the integrated gear, which is way more powerful than what I was talking about just now, it doesn't maximize the user strength. It is the strength itself. It can, because it's built into the body. When you're using it, it's way more it pushes you past your natural limit. So after this, Junk Dog, he has a taste of the real thing, and he decides he wants to do it for real, but because he's paid to take dives, when he doesn't want to do it anymore, he earns the ire of, he gets the attention of the crime boss who ran the organization, and they make a deal that they'll get to the championship fights within 3 months. So there's a plot armor of course he has to win these fights that he's going into. Of course he's going to win. I mean, that's the whole point of the show, for him to face off against Yuri. But when you're watching this, and this is sort of a new show, it's not 100% new, it is like the 50th anniversary of Ashita no Joe, which is Tomorrow's Joe, which is a very old boxing manga and anime that they kind of toyed with you, like using that, like it's sort of like a remix adaptation, modernization sort of. It's a Megalo Boxing is an original story, but if you understand Ashita no Joe, then like you're like certain things you're waiting on. Like every episode in this show has death in the title or dying in the title, and the show itself is really cool in that they have 2 or 3 episodes of like getting the plot going, and then the turn is Joe is fighting with a thug for some kids with a really beat up gear that was an upgrade over his old gear, and when he's fighting the thug has illegal boxing gear. He doesn't have like boxing gloves. He has like brass knuckles construction equipment almost. So Joe has to beat the guy after he loses his gear. He has to beat him with no gear on, and he does. So the trainer that is helping Joe, who has to deal with the crime boss, says, we'll give you, like, we're gonna go in with no gear and we're gonna win on boxing alone. So Joe becomes famous as Gearless Joe, and one of my favorite episodes, it doesn't move the plot forward at all, but it just sets the mood, was having the posters of Joe up in these beaten up towns, these downtrodden areas, having the cool urban youth, like my favorite shot of the entire show has to be the chick on the back of the bike with Gearless Joe tattooed on her thigh. When I saw that, I want that as a shirt. That image I want as a shirt. If I can't find that image as a shirt, I might actually make it myself. So Joe has to go up against these really good boxers that have gear, and he has to fight, I want to say 4 or 5 times. I'll go through it. He fights the shark guy. He fights, I want to say 2 or 3 guys that aren't, they don't even give him, they do a montage to get there. And then, now remember folks, this is about 8 minutes into spoilers, so now we're getting into like the really deep shit. So because it's a 13 episode show, you don't really know what the pacing's gonna be. Like, you don't know if there's getting a second season. I'm not too far into the trades. I don't know what the deal is, but they get really far, and then they're about 3 fights out, and this is when the drama like gets back into gear. If it was just like there was, you don't know if they're going to drop a subplot on you. They don't know what they're going to do, but the subplot that they do drop is the trainer, one of his old fighters, who went off to fight in the war, that gets mentioned. They don't know why they're fighting the war, but like there's a lot of military stuff going on around the fringes of the show, so you don't know where it's going. But the fighter that volunteers to fight Joe, or steps up to fight him, is like ranked 15th, and he was Aramaki, I want to say, or Aragaki. I'm probably butchering his name right now, or I can't remember it exactly, but he has the same training that Joe does, and he's a really good fighter. But what's interesting about him is he's getting over PTSD, he's getting over losing his legs in the war, Which, by the way, him having no legs and gear on is one of the coolest, like images, like it's one of the cooler ones. So, he has a butterfly tattooed on his chest. So, in a 2-part episode, like, Joe sees that butterfly, which I love the storytelling technique they have of that, because, like, the reason why the guy lost his legs is he saw a butterfly right as he was dealing with a dead body that had an IED go off in it, and so the last thing he sees is a butterfly, and he gets that tattooed on his chest. So the last thing Joe sees right before was a butterfly, and I don't know if that's like a reference to I want to say a Seijun Suzuki film. I want to say Branded to Kill was the butterfly movie, but maybe I'm thinking of Tokyo Drifter, but I really think it was Branded to Kill that had butterflies in it. So I want to say that's the first of the two-parter fights. So plot armor, Joe wins that one, but he doesn't win it outright. He wins it because the guy can't continue past 5 rounds, because Joe is just used to getting the shit kicked out of him from taking dives, so he's tough. The real challenge becomes Shirato's brother, I want to say Mikio. And Mikio has an ego that has him being better than everyone else, and he's developed a gear that it has sensors in it, so it picks up on the gear of other fighters and can learn and process it. So he developed his gear specifically to fight against Yuri's gear, which is the integrated gear, which is the gear that his sister, like, this is like a B plot. And because of oh shit, I forgot to mention this. Okay, so in the beginning of the show, Joe doesn't have a citizen's ID. He's like a non-citizen, and in order to become a citizen, he has to make a deal with the crime boss that he works for to give him a counterfeit ID. And what Mikio does is he confronts Joe and says, "You get into that ring, and I will tell everyone you have a counterfeit ID." So Joe doesn't show up to the match. So bit of drama, and they actually have it so that they have to convince the person who hates them to give them the match, give them a rematch. So after several attempts and just sort of clearing the way of saying, hey, he can't prove that this is fake unless they all that, see, shows like this, you have to give us reasons to doubt where they're going with it. And this one gave us doubt about where they are going with it. So when Aramaki knocks Joe down, oh shit, does he lose? I mean, he had to win 5 fights in a row. When Mikio shows up and says, show up in the ring and I'll prove whatever. It's like, oh shit, like we know it's fake. How does he know it's fake? Like, he's pretty smart, he can do it. And then when the crime boss betrays them, that's the third, oh shit, this may not happen. The crime boss wants them to take a dive in the first round. So Joe, like, is debating whether or not he really wants to, like, he's torn because there's a dilemma. If he wins, like, they'll kill him. If he loses, he's out. He can't ever do it again, or he doesn't think he can do it again, and he doesn't want to go back to being like a guy that takes dives. So his manager ends up making a sacrifice to get it, and that's one of the best, like, heartfelt, like man-to-man moments, because the crime boss is actually a pretty cool guy. It's just that it's kind of implied that he turns people into food, that he's a cannibal. So like, that's they don't show you him eating people, but they show you him cooking, and it's kind of implied that he's eating you. Yeah. So, like, in a man-to-man moment, the trainer makes a move, and it allows Joe to be out of their clutches, sort of. But, like, Joe wins the match, like, based on, he decides he wants to win the match, and he also decides, like, he gets the blessing from the manager, who goes on to make the decision that he does. And, like, there was, like, something hanging over the show. The one woman kept meeting with military people, and you kind of saw what was happening. Like, she was kind of making gear for the military, or testing it out or something. And in the last episode, or not the last episode, but the last fight, it's Joe versus Yuri. Now, Yuri had to beat a Mexican boxer, which, like, if you're an Asha no Joe fan, like, you kind of, I think you recognize him as sort of, because that was the thing. Like, I'm very familiar with, I haven't watched it and I haven't read it, but I'm familiar with, like, the structure of Asha no Joe, and if you were an older fan, like, that knew about that one, certain things played with you a little bit. Like, maybe Joe doesn't end up fighting Yuri. Maybe Joe ends up fighting one of the other guys, or something happens, or like there was enough things saying maybe not. And, like, that's how you deal with plot armor. Like, when you have plot armor, you got to deal with okay, maybe there's a subversion going on. And the last episode, and what was great about this one was, you didn't know what to expect, like, for the last two episodes. The second to last episode, Yuri decides that he's going to remove the integrated gear from his body so that he can fight Joe to the best of his ability, but have it be him and not his gear that won the fight. Because Yuri is basically he sees maybe not as a rival, but just like someone that he wants to invest in. And Joe, wait, 24 minutes, okay. Give it another 5 minutes. So Joe sort of, like, takes it lightly when he knows that he's going up against Yuri with the gear. And when you see the main fight, you kind of understand why. The last fight, Yuri puts a pounding on Joe. Which, shit. I should have, did I explain that shit? Like, I don't know, about, like, 20 minutes into this, but, Junk Dog is Joe. When Joe, took the name Joe, he, it was just Joe, and, he took the, like, Shit. I should have explained that when I was talking about the beginning of the episodes. Okay. So anytime I was talking about Joe this past 20 minutes, I was talking about Junk Dog. Okay. That's why I was also talking about Ashina Joe, because like it implies that the Joe you're watching is supposed to be like the Joe that you know about. And the reason why like death is in all the titles is because like in the original Ashina Joe died in the last fight. So when you get to the last episode, it's like, is he gonna die? And he's been a protagonist that you've liked, that you've rooted for, that has character, that he doesn't care about the BS, the politics, the social exchange, the social contract. He wants to prove himself against the guys that are in the ring with him, and he wants to get to Yuri, and he wants to like prove himself on that level to himself and to everyone. And he, not just that, he also wants to like give people a reward for believing in him that worked with him. Like he believe, like he has a team, and he wants to do the team right, and he wants to do it himself right, and he wants to be the best, and he's constantly about that. So last episode, it goes 13 rounds, and brilliant move on their part to have it go 13 rounds, because there's 13 episodes, and the 13th episode is called the final round. So the fight between Joe and Yuri is awesome, because it's it looks one-sided. Joe gets knocked down more than Yuri, but at the same time, like, Joe is figuring out Yuri. He's just like surviving, and you have these characters that are commenting and on Yuri's side and interacting with him and giving you information, and it's just adding to the character of both guys. When the fight is over, it gets a little surreal, and then they do a time skip. That time skip was brutal. Like, it had me sitting at the edge of my seat. So I'm watching, and I was like, what happened? What happened? Like, oh shit, Yuri's in a wheelchair. Joe put him in a wheelchair. What happened to Joe? Like, you see an empty space where they were training. Like, originally they had no area to themselves. They just had a boat. They had a boat, and they had a makeshift ring under a bridge. Like, it was like they made Joe the ultimate underdog throughout the whole show. So where's Joe? Then they slip in, hey, they're doing another Megalonia tournament. So it's like, oh shit, like, is there gonna be a season 2? Where's Joe? So they show Joe back where he started, and they're like, oh shit, is Joe gone? What the hell happened? Is he leaving? Is he gonna travel the world? What the hell? Turns out Joe is alive, and he's helping the kids that you've seen throughout the show become like gear using boxers. So, and they have a gym, and they're friends with like most of the people that, like, they're friends with Yuri, they're friends with Aragaki, and they are like not telling you what happened. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, they're gonna roll out the credits and all that stuff, and then on the last second they say what the hell happened in the result. Joe won the fight. And I've never been that pleased with an ending to an anime in I don't know how long. Like, there was no what the hell's going on, there was no crazy escalations. There was just like two guys that you knew were gonna fight. Like, it was the little details too, like when the guy says, this is the longest fight in Megalo Box history, 13 rounds. and they both go out on like right hooks or on hooks, and you see both guys connect, but I guess Joe knocked down Yuri, and Joe got knocked down, but I think Joe got up. But they don't show that. They do a time jump and they go to the end, and I kind of want a season 2 on the basis if I could get another 13 episodes this good, or explore this, something like this, because somehow, some way, if this was the anime version of Rocky, I would take it. So with Megalo Box, the music was awesome. The art was a revelation. Just getting old school backgrounds, old school character designs, like drawn with a little bit of like sketchiness. Like, I can't wait to see this on Blu-ray, because this is one good. I will own this one. I'm going out and buying this one, even though I've seen it. I want this one in my library. So, do I recommend it? Yes. Megalo Box is so good that you can watch this video, have everything spoiled for you, but still be able to, like me telling you about Megalo Box is about me telling you about the Grand Canyon. Yeah, it's a big hole in the ground. Go to the Grand Canyon and tell me it's a big hole in the ground. So, peace out, everybody.